Here it is. It's all plugged in. Some sound so we can hear something. It's in the case, fixed with the 4 knurlies. Apologies for the lighting. I had to have it a little bit darker. I even have to use my hand sometime to cover the light, so that on your screen it becomes easier to see the color changing inside the buttons when I press to select different things. Anyway, we are ready to go. Let's move on. Generally, we are all a little bit picky about which module makes it into our HP limited cases. For some people, aesthetics matter, and of course, what looks nice and what does not look nice is a subjective matter. The Eloquencer uses a tried and tested color scheme, black, orange and white. It's a nice color scheme, it works well, complemented by orange, red or green lights inside the buttons, depending what you're doing, what you press. Nice, clear and crisp OLED display. LED metrics for the sequencer. These are red LEDs. I'm saying it because they may appear to be yellow on screen, but they are actually red. Does it work well? Is it easy to interact with? Or is it too crammed and you end up pressing the wrong thing by mistake? Well, let's go and find out. The Eloquencer offers plenty of features, but what's important as well is for the user, how easy, how accessible all those things are. So we will be looking at the specifics of each element later on. Now let's have a look at the overall layout and how you access most of this functionality. The layout is clearly divided in sections. The bottom section has 16 multifunctional buttons, and I'll get back to this multifunctionality in a second. To the right, we have the 8 tracks with 8 buttons. This can access individual tracks when you are editing patterns, or they can access banks of patterns if you are in pattern mode. Each of the 8 tracks has 2 outputs. A trigger gate output, low, high, 0, 8 volts, and CV output, range 0, 10 volts, 12-bit precision. At the very top, we have a joy to use, fantastic rotary pushing knob. Thank you, Winter Modular, for using a quality knob on this device. It's very sturdy, it's dented, solid push. You can push and rotate for more coarse adjustments. But anyway, yeah, this works great. 2 CV inputs to modify some parameters using external voltage. Reset and clock inputs, an auxiliary output to output gates or a reset on stop. Clock output with a divider and a multiplier. And then the simple play and stop button. These, grouped by this white line around it, are the edit modes. CV, gate length, ratchet. Again, more about the specifics a little bit later. And then there is the magic function button. We will talk about this in a second when we talk about the multifunctionality of these buttons down here. The middle section, it's a big visual display-based feedback of what you are doing and what's going on. The OLED or LED display, it's nice, clear, crisp, is great. And then the LED metrics for your sequencer, it shows you horizontally 16 steps per vertically the 8 tracks. Then you have the cursor, this vertical line, scrolling across so you can see on which step you are. So let's go back down to these buttons. Yes, they are multifunctional, but I have to congratulate the Winter Modular for doing an excellent job in making the multifunctionality really accessible. Oh, actually, before I go on, there is the SD card here where you can save all your hard work, so excellent to be able to save, load projects. Yes, if I was to read to you everything you can do with these 16 buttons, well, let's try. Tempo, shuffle, scale, step mode, track shift, track length, random fill, live recording, mute, LFO, modulation, auxiliary, clock, freeze, revert, pattern, song, project, option, copy, paste, duplicate, clear. Way, wow, there's a lot of stuff in a small section. You're definitely gonna forget how to access these, how to do that. No, it is actually really easy. Forget for a moment about all this text. Let's say you are in pattern mode, like I am now. I'm in pattern mode, I'm playing patterns. So, because I'm in pattern mode, all these 16 buttons can do is change to a different pattern. Don't need to think about anything. It's a different pattern. There you go, easy. These are also multifunctional, these track buttons, and thank God for that, because there's a lot of buttons if all you could do with it is access a track. In pattern mode, here you use it to change the bank of patterns, bank 1, bank 2, bank 3. So if I want to go to the first pattern in bank 1 of 16, pattern 1, and I am there. Bank 2, I don't even know what's there. Pattern 3, this one, well, there you go. Again. Bank 3, pattern 16, that's where I was before. So the important thing here is that Winter Modular did not make the mistake, having space on the panel anyway, of asking the user to access all these modes, all this functionality through one single display menu-based system. Instead, I'm playing a pattern and I want to save the project. There you go. I can save and load it. Back to pattern. The orange functions, you access them by a quick press. Function, LFO. Function, lock, to change the settings for the output input locks. Mute, and you can mute your parts. It's immediate. Put them back on. I want to go to pattern mode. Now, pattern, song, project, etc. All this white text box, which is the one at the very bottom here, all they require is a longer press. So, look, for example, I'll go back to mute. Function, mute, immediate. I want to go to song, it's the same button. Oh, it's the same button, easy. Function, hold it until song options appear. Back to pattern, hold it. To pattern, I don't hold it. I'm in live recording, which I don't want to be right now. There you go, I'm back in pattern. So, Winter Modular, yeah, I think they did achieve a great result. I think they were successful in creating a device that offers a lot, but they made all that lot easy to access. So, top marks for user interface, layout design, accessibility, great. In the Eloquencer, a song is a collection of, or is a sequence of parts. So you could have, just as a silly example, intro, verse, chorus, verse, coda. Each of these parts in a song holds patterns. Now, a song can be made of 256 parts. So you have a memory for 64 individual patterns, and you have memory slots for 64 individual parts. There you go. This is the song menu. Now, you can switch song mode on and off. If it is on, you can play the song, and the Eloquencer keeps playing the song, and if you have a loop mode on, the song loops. Or you can choose to play a part, so we'll see that in a second. So as I said, a song is a chain, a sequence of parts, so we need to create parts to make a song. So I go on create part, there you go. You see, the cursor is here, is in waiting for me to start it. Now, as I said, we have 4 banks of 16 parts. So it's asking me, which part do you want to create? I'm going to create A1, because it's all empty anyway. I don't have any part pre-recorded. Part length. This changes automatically. Every time, I'll do it in a second, every time I add a pattern to this part, of course, the part length will go 1 pattern long, 2 patterns long, 3, 4, and so on. So, I'll show you. I press start now. Boom. It's waiting for me to tell it which patterns do you want in this part. And you can select any of the 4 banks, right? So I go to Patterns, Bank A, and I want pattern 1 twice. See, A1, and we are on pattern length 2. And I want pattern 3, they don't have to be in a sequence, it can be any of the patterns. I want pattern 3 twice, 1 and 2. And I think part 1, I don't want it to be 16 patterns long. 4 patterns length is fine. So finish. Boom. Okay. Now I want to create another part. So I do create part, and I want to create part A2. Boom. 0. So start. In this part 2, I want pattern 2 twice. Just an example, I'm making it up. And I want pattern 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. So part 1 was 4 pattern long. Part 2, it's 6 part long. Remember, a part can be 16 patterns long. I just don't have enough patterns here to do that. And press finish. Then I want to create another part. You can have 256. Don't worry, I'm not going to create 256 parts right now. So create part, and I want to create part A3, and start. Okay, and here I want. I'll just have this one 8 times. This pattern 8 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Finish. Boom. Now you can. I did not create a song yet. I have just created 3 parts. Indeed, I could go to play parts. Play parts. And I can play this part, or I can play this part 1, or part 2. You see that it will change to the other pattern. Okay, I can play part 4, which is made with pattern 5. Okay, repeating 8 times. Okay, let's go back to song mode, and let's create a song. Create a song. Start. It's waiting for me. When I start, it's going to be wanting me to tell it which parts do you want in this song. So start. Well, in this case, I just want part 1 that goes into part 2 and then goes into part 3. Yeah, that's enough for now. Finish. I created the song. Okay, well, hey. So let's play the song and see what happens. See, it's part 1, about to go to part A2, and it tells you which pattern is playing. Now it's in part 2, next is part 3, and which pattern is playing. And now it's in part 3. Because it's in loop mode, next we'll go back to part A1. So there you go, part 1. So yes, I do like the song parts and patterns structure that you get with the Eloquencer. Now let's look at pattern, song, project mode, the white options down here. We start with patterns, so we can have a look at copying, pasting, duplicating, clearing patterns and tracks. Alright, so I am in pattern mode and I'm playing this pattern, okay? So let's say I want to copy this pattern and paste it here. Easy. Function, copy. Pattern, copy. Go to the empty one and function, paste. Pattern, pasted. But I want to show you something else about copying and pasting. Let's clear this pattern first. So it is this one I want to clear. It's playing. So function clear. And it asks me, sure you want to clear it? Yes. There you go. And let's go back here. Right. You don't have to copy everything that is inside a pattern. Pay attention to these editing mode buttons up here. You see that when I press function copy, if I hold it, they light up. And I can choose, am I only want to copy the CV for all the tracks in a new pattern, or only the gates, or whatever. But okay, in this case, I'm going to copy everything. But so that you know, you can copy individual data type, okay? Then when I go to the new pattern, function paste, and it pastes everything you copied. We'll look at tracks in a second. Now, let's see how it duplicates patterns. I have this pattern running and I want to duplicate it because, you know, maybe I want to do some changes on it, whatever. The Eloquencer, when you choose to duplicate a pattern, will duplicate it and paste it automatically for you in the next available slot. We are playing this pattern, you will see it will paste it in this one because this is busy. You see the light is on, if you can see. We're playing this light is on means there is something here already, and this is switched off because it's an empty pattern slot. So it will duplicate and paste it in an empty pattern slot, in the next empty pattern slot, and it will also move the sequencer to that pattern, so you can go on, keep editing on the new duplicated pattern straight away, which is a nice touch. So I'm here, okay, duplicate, boom, this light up. And now we are here, the sequencer is moved, did move to this pattern. If you go into CV, of course, you know, you can immediately start editing, adding notes, changing things, whatever you want to do. So let's clear a few things, so it's easy to listen to individual tracks, to some of the tracks. So I'm in this track, I'm in editing mode. You know, when you are in any of these editing mode, you can clear individual tracks. So you can choose which track you want to clear. In this case, I want to clear this one. And again, look at these editing buttons up here. So function clear. I can choose to clear everything from this track or some of the data. Let's say you don't like just your gate length, so your ratcheting, but you know the CV gates are fine. Just delete these two and redo them. But in this case, I want to delete everything. So there you go. Deleted. I'll just put a note here. Okay. Okay, so I remember this was the one we deleted. We could delete this one as well. Delete everything. Clear. Clear everything. Yes. That's it. Now let's go back to pattern mode, and we go to any of these patterns. We go into any of the editing mode so we can access the individual tracks. And let's say I want to copy this track. Yep. So I do function, copy. Again, do you want to copy everything? Yes. Track copy. Now you can choose any pattern you want. We're going to choose, this one. Yes, there you go. Go back into editing mode so you can access the individual tracks. And I want to copy that track to track G in this different pattern. So paste. So now it's playing. There you go. You can of course copy and paste tracks within the same pattern. Editing modes, CV, gate length, ratchet. Well, let's go to an empty pattern. So let's go to the 10. There you go. This is empty. And let's go into gate mode to start with. CV, gate length, ratchet parameters. the variability range, the variability probability, the happens or not. These are all in parameters that you can set per each step within each track of a pattern, which is excellent because this way you're allowed to create a more or less controlled random variation of individual elements on each step per track that helps you having a looping repeated pattern that it never sounds the same every time it goes through again and again. But let's do it because it's easier to demonstrate than talk about it. Of course, I'm not going to make a piece of music now. I'm just going to create an horrible pattern just to show some of these features. On track A, I have a mutant bass drum. Let's just add some beat, okay? Right. In gate, you simply switch gates on and off. As simple as that. Well, we'll look at the tie later with some more some melodic sound. The probability, is this gate going to be sent out? Yes, no. And what's the chance that it's going to be sent out if it's on? So it goes from 100%, so every time it reaches this step, the sequencer reaches this step, the gate is sent out, to 1 in 8 times, not very often. Let's put this every time for now. But let's say we want to add something like, I don't know, this here. Okay, but we don't want this every time on this repeating pattern. So we could say that this gate only happens half the times, and this one even less. Okay, let's go to Ratchet. It defaults with no Ratchet. That's just the full, the gate being sent out. Let's add some Ratchet here. You have 8 types. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now you don't hear it because the probability is 0%, like no Ratchet is being applied. But let's apply the Ratchet. Which is this Ratchet, right? But let's say you want some Ratchet here, and maybe you do want it every time, 100%, but you don't want the same Ratchet to happen every single time. So you go to Ratchet variation probability, and you increase it. Let's say 100%. Now every time it goes through, it plays a different Ratchet pattern. So you can hear, yeah, it changes. Let's add some snare. Now let's say that we got some snare hits, and this one we want it not very often, so we go to, there you go, don't need the time on the snare, and we want some Ratchet on this snare. Probability 100%. Okay, and these last 2 snares, this one you want it not very often, and this one only half of the times. There you go, right? Pico PCO. So let's go and look at CBs now. This is quite low, so let's go to. Now, when you hold down the track button, you can change any parameter, a CV, a gate length, ratcheting type, ratcheting probability, whatever it is that you are editing. By holding down, you change it for all the steps. Now, this is changing all the steps in the whole, all 16 steps for the track, for the instrument. Go to A3, just to go high. There you go. Right, let's add some sound. Yep. add some different CV. To change the CV of an individual step, you just hold that step and change it. Let's put this to E2. Okay. Now, melodically, you can add random semi-controlled variations. So, apart, of course, you could change the probability that the gate happens or not. Let's change it for the whole track, for example. Let's put the whole track with a gate probability of 50%. Now, each note may not play. So you don't always have the same sequence of notes playing, it's different every time. And we can do the same for the ties. Let's put a tie here. Now the tie holds the sound, it ties the sound until it finds the next step that does not have a tie. So if I add a tie here, it will carry on all the way here. So let's add some tie. Let's change the probability of the gates a little bit higher. Okay, we've got something going on. Now, CV, you can actually add variation and probability of change to the actual pitch of each individual note. So you see, here it tells you that this is an A3, this is a C4, this is an E2. Now, let's go to variation probability and variation range. Okay, there is already a range there. So, variation probability. Say that I want to change the pitch of this note every time it's played, so 100%. Right? Now, for that note, you can not only you can change the probability that there is a variation in pitch, but luckily enough, you can also change the bipolar plus minus amount of semitones, which is the range of variation. So let's reduce this to, well, it goes to, what, to a law. Let's go to, I don't know, minus plus 7. This one we can change it to 5. Okay. Yeah. So now, or you could change it for, you could change the probability for all the track to 57% and maybe reduce the range for the whole track to minus plus 7. So now, every time this melody plays, every time the cursor goes through the pattern, actually every note it's going to be a different one. But per each step, you have control of. Yeah, I changed the whole track, but we could say this one, oh, I want this to change by 12. Right? And this one only by plus minus 3. And well, what about the gate length? The gate length, you have 4, I think it's 4, if I remember well, 4 parameters here. Gate length, you see? I'm going to change it for the whole track, just to show you. Hold down the track and I change the gate length here. 128, 164, 132, 116, right? Now let's put it to 164, okay? But let's go to variation probability. Yes, I want the gate length of each step for this whole track to 100% change every time. It's one of those 4 gate lengths, and you can change it to the variation range. Each step can change by 2 gate length values, or 3, or 4. Now, not only is they changing in pitch, but they're changing in gate length. The tie on some of the notes, sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. have some fun. Let's go to track length. Now it's repeating only these 3 notes, but it's repeating with that randomness built in into it. I like it. Functions or modes where you apply a change and modification, not to just individual steps, but to a whole track, the entire pattern, globally to the entire song. And okay, I have a pattern here, just a few sounds put together so we can hear when we can hear the difference when we change parameters on the Eloquencer. Let's start with tempo. All right, you have the option of using internal or external tempo. With the internal tempo, you use the data entry knob to change the tempo. It's pretty obvious, of course. This goes from 5 to 350 BPM, I think. Yeah, it does. So let's go back to 120. Now let's try with an external tempo. Now, of course, I don't have anything plugged in, so if I go to it, freezes. I'm going to get the tempo from somewhere else. Let's use, this will do, the Liveforms percussion sequencer. So it goes here. And the Eloquencer immediately takes the tempo from the external source and it displays the BPM. Let me try changing the tempo on the percussion sequencer. I use the tap tempo so I can keep changing it. Let's go slower. Yeah, it immediately gets the tempo, and on the beginning of the bar will show you the new tempo. Faster. Yeah. Yes, it reacts immediately, so that's good. Yeah, that'll do. And let's try the cables in front of me. Stop. Yes. Play. Yeah, it reacts perfectly fine. A few more things that I think it's important to look at. Let's go back to the external, to receiving an external clock. So we go here and we set it. It's again coming from the Liveforms percussion sequencer, and it's set at 93 BPM. Now, if you go to clock options here, right, you see you have the option to set a clock input multiplier. So by default it's just 1-to-1 match. Your options are ×2, so this should go twice as fast. Here ×4, ×8, and then goes into the divisions. So divided 2 up to, well, it goes beyond 8. I'm just not going to press all of them. Up to divided by 16. Anyway, so let's go back to 1-to-1. In this menu, this is also where you can change the multiplier for the clock output. You have ×2 and then divided 4 up to divided 16. So you only have a ×2 and then it's divisions. The pulse, to make it work well with other sequencers. Your options here, if you want to see, they are 3, 4, 8, 12. Yeah. Defaults with 8. Well, we may as well talk about the master track here. The master track is the one that runs, that you set to decide the number of the pattern length for the whole device So let's say the pattern length at the moment is set to 16. What happens is that it goes to the pattern starts on step 1 all the way to step 16 and then goes back to step 1. Why is this important? With the Eloquencer, you can have different track lengths per track. So you could have a track set to 16 steps, a track set to 8, 3, 2, whatever, you decide. What the setting of the master track does is that when the master track reaches the end and goes back to step 1, it sends a reset to the device for the whole pattern. So when the master track goes back to step 1, all the tracks, doesn't matter where they were in their individual track length, go back to step 1. If, for example, you set the sequencer, or you set, for example, one track to play Pendulum. If the track is using 16 steps in length, and you set it to Pendulum, the Pendulum needs 16 steps going up, and then 16 steps going down. So that track needs 32 steps, right? But if the master track is set to 16, then it goes to 16, and when the Pendulum is supposed to then play backwards, on its way back to step 1, it doesn't, because the master track sends a reset. So for that, you need to set the master track to 32 steps, or you can set that track, the one where you have the Pendulum, if you want, to be the master track. So each track will reset, on after the 32nd step. Or you can set that track with the Pendulum not to follow the master track, to be independent from it. And here, in this screen, the master track settings, you can set it to internal. It means it's another track. You don't do anything with the track apart setting the track length. Or that's where you can decide, I want track A or B or C. Any of the 8 tracks can be the master track. So put it back to internal. And this is where you change the master track length. I can show you an example. Let's play the pattern. Now this pattern is set to 16. Let's set the master track to 8 here. You see? It gets to 8 and the whole pattern goes back to 1. If this was set to 6, right? We set this to 2. The whole pattern only does 2 steps and it resets. There is quite a lot of flexibility for you to, when it comes to combine different sequencer-based devices and have them to work the way you want. The shuffle, again, applies to the whole song. Well, let's change quite a bit so we can start to feel the difference. It goes up to 80%. Next is scale. Okay, here, this is where you can quantize all the tracks. There are a few options: chromatic, major, minor, melodic minor, harmonic minor, blues, etc. Well, you can see in the manual all the ones that are available. Then there is a user scale, and this is where you can make your own options of what you want. Okay. Keep in mind when you apply any of the scale, if you go into CB mode, you may add some notes, right, and the display tells you what you are adding, and then you could scroll to change the pitch, whatever. But keep in mind, well, now it's chromatic, so But if there was a more rigid quantization where maybe you were in only a major triad or octave even, this still shows you what you are pressing, so you know what you are doing. But the note, each note, it's shifted the output to the closest available note in that scale. Step mode. Per each of these tracks, you can change the option of how the steps within each track are played. So I have a track, it could be on any track, you can do more tracks at the same time. I'll just give you an example with this track, so it will be easier to follow on screen. If I select this track only, then when I move the rotary knob, I will only change value for that track, you see? So you have a forward, which is the normal way to play the steps as the pattern moves along. You have backwards. Now if you see, you have the vertical cursor moving right, but track G, this one, you see, it's moving backwards, it's playing the notes backwards. Okay? Pendulum. Now, pendulum is the one where it goes to the end and then it should go back. But the master track length is set to 16 steps. So the pendulum doesn't have time, it doesn't have space to go backwards. Well, I'll show you how to disengage the reset, the master track reset from any track. You simply go Function, Options, then you go down to Reset Track Configuration, and I'll switch it off for this track. You will see when I switch it off, the pendulum step mode will be able to do what it's supposed to do. So I'll switch it off, it's going up, and now track G is going backwards. See? Up and down, because it's not getting reset after step 16, so it has time to do whatever it needs to do. But I'll put it back on for now. So we go back to step mode, right? It's still the only track selected, random. It plays those steps randomly. Repeat 4. You can see what it's doing. And the division by 4. That's the only division you have on any individual track. You don't have a lot of options in terms of how many times multiply or divide by. And that's it. So we can put this back to forward. If you want to invert something else, let's see what happens. Now you see, now you will see 3 tracks changing. Just 1, 2, which is the bass drum, snare, and this pico VCO, I think. Are they all random? Well, those 3 tracks are random. And back to normal. And let's look at track shift or pattern shift. It defaults with all the tracks selected, which means if you start shifting the tracks or the values, the whole pattern with all the tracks, all the notes will shift at the same time. So you can see here, but you can see here for all the tracks. See? Shifting that way. So let's say we only want to shift this track G again. Okay, so the others are masked off. This is the only active track. So now I can only shift this track. Okay, everything else is as it was, and only track G is scrolling. To track length. You can change the track length for any of these 8 tracks. Okay, so let's say, well, this is really hands-on, easy thing. You simply choose how many steps that specific track it's going through. So 2, it's going 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. The whole track, all 16 steps, only these 3 steps. So let's do it for the snare. So you can do this, in live for fun, to add some momentary variation. That's it, just something really fun. I think I like it, I love it. Randomize. Okay. You have a few options. You see it says here, randomize 1 layer wide range, 1 layer narrow range, 3 layers wide, 3 layers narrow range. The layers refer to, okay, you can randomize CV, gate length, ratchet, and other things. If you choose to randomize 1 layer, in the case of CVs, it only randomizes the first layer of this CV editing mode, which is the actual CV, the pitch. If it was on 3 layers, then would randomize the CVs, but also the probability, the variation range, and the probability that actually does vary it. Now, if you go to CVs, you have variation, probability, and range. So if you randomize 3 layers, you're going to randomize the values for all these 3 screens, all these 3 types of parameters. Instead, if you randomize only 1 layer, it only randomizes the CVs. The same for the gate, only randomizes the actual gate, or randomizes the gate probability, and so on. So let's go back to, yes, we were on this pattern, so let's go back to random. And let's do an example randomizing only 1 layer, narrow. When you choose, after you've chosen the type of randomizer you want to apply, you can select, do you want to randomize all the tracks at the same time, only a few tracks? Let's do an example with just this track. And these are the parameters you can randomize: CV, gate length, ratchet, scale, step mode, and track length. I don't want to randomize track length, I don't want to change the scale. And let's say I only want to randomize the step mode: forward, backwards, random, pendulum, gates, and CVs. So let's see. And it was a narrow. So let's do the same, but with a wide range. Let's try randomizing 3 layers, narrow range. For those, let's randomize the ratchet as well. Then let's apply 1 layer wide. Anyway, you get the idea. So you can randomize all tracks at the same time with all the parameters all at the same time, only some track, 1 track at a time, only some of the parameters. So there is quite a lot of flexibility in how you want to play with these. And indeed, now if you go on CVs for this, then it shows you what you have done. And I don't know, let's try track length and okay, well, you get the idea. Function fill. So you are in fill mode. With fill mode, you can, you simply press whichever track you want to fill. But you can press more tracks at the same time. If you want to use 8 fingers, you could do that. So it plays all the notes in the track, so it fills all the gaps and ignores the settings you currently have for gate probability, should not be played, the variation range. It just fills all the notes and that's it. Live rec. In free play, you can decide, you can choose to play any of the 8 tracks yourself. So you choose which track you want to play yourself, and that track stops playing by itself, and you have a keyboard here. You see these rectangles? C, D, E, etc. They represent the keyboard. This green, don't know if you can see with this light, but these green buttons are octave up and down. You can see the octave. So if you look at octave 3, octave 4, 5, it goes from 0 to 9. Yeah, so you got plenty of octaves to play with. And then you can play the track yourself, and it's not time quantized, so you go total free play. If you change track, whatever was recorded here started playing again. Select it, I play. But you get the idea. One more thing before we look at the other modes. When you are in live recording, in free play, and in the next one, CV key recording, the next one up, I don't know how well you can see with this lighting, but the keys that are part of the scale that you selected for this project are highlighted, while the keys that are not part of the scale, they are darker, so you can tell, which key you press is going to be within that mode or scale. So, for example, if I go here, right, you see that these ones are all highlighted. But these ones are not, and they don't fit the scale. CV key recording. Okay. With this one, if I don't touch anything, the track selected keeps playing whatever was already recorded, and this is yes, one track at a time. If I start to play, I will be adding notes to the track. So this is what it plays now, and I'm going to play something on it. And if you want to quickly, you can also change octave, of course. That was a bit too. If you want to clear the track, you hold that track, and boom, see, cleared all the notes. And now I can play something else. Gate recording. This allows you to use the 8 track buttons as if they were a drum machine pad. You just tap it along with the sequencer cursors moving, and then you can, record a beat or something. So let me try something. Never mind this thing that didn't play, is because it's out of pitch. Anyway, so you press whatever you want and it goes on. It's straightforward. You select the mute function and you select which track. Simple as that. These two, LFO and MOD, modulation, I guess, they are not yet available, but modulation. When I go to auxiliary, that's it. This is a brand new track. It's a separate track that comes out of the auxiliary output up here. You can use it as an additional track of gates, which is handy, so you can have 9 gate tracks. Or you could use it, for example, in the previous track, which I called, it's on my YouTube channel if you look for it, it's called Eurorack. It was dedicated to Eloy, the designer of the module. Anyway, I used these gates to go to the accent input on the mutant snare drum, if I remember well, to just have an accent and change the snare on specific steps. But yeah, they are gates, so you can use them for anything you want, really. The other option is don't use it for gates, and you can use it as a pulse that comes out when you stop the sequencer. When you stop the sequencer, it sends this pulse out, which you could use. You could send it in the input of a reset on another reset command, on another sequencer. So you make sure that if this is the master sequencer, when you press stop, this sends the impulse to the reset on another sequencer, so that one resets too. Let's have a look at freeze and revert. Of course, they work together. You can freeze a pattern, then you can apply changes to it, you can randomize things, whatever you want, improvise live. When you're done with it, you can then revert to the original pattern. And you can only revert, remember this, you can only revert to that original pattern while you are in the pattern you froze in the first place. So if you freeze a pattern, and you do changes and so on, then you go to another pattern. Let's say you lost it, you cannot revert anymore. So you can only revert to a pattern as long as you are still in that pattern. So I'll show you. I go to freeze this pattern frozen. Now I can change whatever I want here. So let's change a few things. Let's add bops. Let's maybe add variations to it. Change something on another track. Okay, whatever. So, now, okay, I'm done with it. I want to go back to the original one. That's it. We are back where we were. Here is where we can change the parameters for our external voltage coming in, as in which parameter is going to be affected by the external voltage and for which tracks, and then some other options. I'm going to use the erogenous tones for some voltage, just because it's handy. Yeah, there is nothing plugged into the levitate, so it's just a voltage coming out of it. So let's see which parameters are available and what we can do with it. Let's enter the assignment for the first one. And let's go to the first one is a CV add. Let's play a pattern. Well, what this does, first of all, it adds the external voltage to whatever voltage you have in each step of your already sequenced tracks. And here you decide which tracks are affected. Yeah, we can do this to G and H. That's a peak of VCO and this is the Buttler playing low notes. So yes, okay, this is the standard pattern. Now I'm going to change the voltage. You can also change the range here of the voltage, 0 to 10 and plus minus 5. 0 to 10. So now as I change voltage, these two tracks will change in pitch. Let me assign something to CV2 as well, so we can control two things at the same time. So let's go back. CV2. What we're gonna put here? We can see this with CV1. Oh, yeah, track shift. This will be okay. With this, what we do? Let's assign it. Yep, this one again. This one will be fine. So what's going to happen now is that as I change voltage coming into this input 2, this track G will shift. See? Then I can use CV1 to change the pitch. Oh, wrong one. Back to normal. Now let's go and see the other parameters available to us for external CV mangling. CVQ. Okay, what this does, let's assign it somewhere. Yeah, both together is actually a good thing. Okay, what this does, the CV we send it, the voltage we send on CV1 in this case, it's going to be quantized. And as long as we send some voltage, it will have priority over whatever CVs we already have sequenced. So the external voltage takes over the CVs for any tracks. Oh, let me clarify this. It can be assigned to any number of tracks. All these parameters can be assigned to one or more tracks. Okay. So now, if I change voltage for CV1, which is being sent to these two tracks, the Eloquencer will quantize the voltage. Track shift. Okay, let's try something else. Normal. All right. CVP. This is to change the probability of the CVs. Then we have GP. It will change the voltage. Will change the probability of gates happening. Basically, it changes whatever settings we already have in there. Gate length could be okay to show. Is on this track, so it's a CV1. I'm going to change the gate length of the Pico VCO nodes. Long gate. This is the one I sequenced originally, and now changing to longer. Yeah. What else we can change? Gate length probability, ratcheting, assigned now to Pico, VCO, and the snare. Is changing the ratchet height. Okay. Then the ratchet probability. track shift, we already have it on track 2, you have seen that. Okay, now we go to the mutes. Mute 1, it will mute one of the assigned tracks depending on the voltage. So let's assign all the tracks, okay? And now as I change voltage, it mutes a different track. Okay, that's quite useful. Mute binary, it's a different relation between the voltage and how it affects the tracks from A to H. You will have to try to really understand it. But it's a different way to have control over which tracks are muted. Muted tracks, it's really a switch. Okay, now I have these ones assigned, which is the percussions and something else. It's an on-off switch. As I go over 50% of the range, those tracks will switch off. See, they're off. Sorry for the camera. They're on. And they're off. Okay. Fill. They work like the mute. It will fill one of the tracks depending on the voltage. We apply the fill, I mean. As I change the voltage, it applies the fill to a different track. Then the other, the binary way of influencing it. It's pretty nice. Plenty of mangling options. On and off on selected tracks. And that's it. Alright, these were all the options. They are the exact same options you have available for CV2. Right. Then we have the tune, which I'm not gonna go into. There are files. The Eloquencer is tuned the factory before being sent, before Winter Modular sends it out. There are files in here you may want to back up, so you have the original files for the tuning of the Eloquencer always saved somewhere, and you can tune it yourself with a decent multimeter, at least 1 millivolt precision, following instructions on screen. But I'm not going to go into that now. I don't need to tune this right now. These, where they're two, but I think this one is not working because it goes to the same one, which is the one below here. There is reset track configuration, but we have already talked about this, so we don't need to see that again. And then the last one, it's alright, the rotary direction, regular and goofy. When goofy, it inverts the rotation, the relationship between the rotation and of the knob and how the parameters change. So if you are in CV mode, if you go up, it goes pitch up. If you go down, it goes pitch down, or the other way around. If you go up, it goes pitch down, and so on. So anyway, that's not important to show. Okay, let's now take some measurements of the voltage present at one of the outputs of the Eloquencer. I'm talking about the CV outs, of course. Now, I already checked a few of the outputs, and there is only some millivolts different between one and another output. I mean, like plus minus a couple of millivolts, so that is pretty good. In this pattern, I have nothing on the E track, so I I plug the patch cable into the CV out of the track E, and I simply used alligator clips to connect the multimeter to the patch cable so we can get some simple readings. And we start from C0. The Eloquencer goes from C0 to C10, so that's 0 to 10 volts, 1 volt per octave. At C0 we expect 0 volts, and we do have 0.000 millivolts, so yeah, that's perfect. C1. Okay, this is C1, and we have 1.000. Perfect. C2, we have 1.999.5, so this is less than half a millivolt, so that is great. C3, okay, yeah, 2.99999 or whatever, so yeah, it's 3 volts, yeah, I mean, it's good. C4, again, it's about half a millivolt off, so it's perfect, really. Okay, it's not perfect, but it's C5, again, less than 1 millivolt under, so that's good. I'm happy with it. C6, 6 volts, 5.999. I mean, we can read it as 6. C7, perfect 7 volts. C8, 7.999. C9, perfect 9. And C10. Okay, on C10 we have 4 centivolts. I think it's because I did look into the user tuning option where you can actually create a user tune file of the Eloquencer. And for other values, like for example 9, 8, there you go, that's, yeah, like 9. 0 to 9 volts, if I remember well, when I was trying the user tuning, you do have explicit tuning with the multimeter. You need a good multimeter to tune it, otherwise don't waste time with it. And that is, I think, because when I tried to create the user tuning file for the device, you do use the multimeter to calibrate 0 to 9 volts values. So I assume C10, 10 volts, it's because it's not directly calibrated with the multimeter, it must be calculated, interpolated, worked out from, I guess, the 9 volts, because it's the closest value. So that is not directly tuned to 10. But again, 4 cents, I mean, we're talking about C10. Okay, I think we have covered enough. We have seen most of what the Eloquencer can do. Of course, what you can do with it, it goes beyond what we have seen here. You have 8 CV outputs. They don't have to go out and control the pitch of a VCO. They are voltage outputs. You have from 0 to 10 volts. For example, you could have a sequenced pattern of voltages, of low and high voltages compared to a threshold. Maybe go into a logic module to then trigger other things. It offers a lot. What you do with it, it's up to you. Anyway, so are there things I don't like about it, things that I think they are missing and so on? Well, to be honest, I have enjoyed working with the Eloquencer so far. I made a couple of tracks with it, and I did have a lot of fun. There is a lot you can do with it. So I'm happy that I actually have an Eloquencer and I can see myself using this. Some things I looked for while I was using it and I didn't find it. A pattern insert feature. let's say you have all of these 8 patterns in pattern mode busy, as you know, you already programmed these 8 patterns, then you decide, oh, I want to add something different here. You have to manually move, copy and paste these patterns somewhere else, like one pattern along, to make some space and then, create a new pattern here. You do have a division multiplier for the device when it receives the clock from outside, but you don't have a multiplier, for example, for each track when just working with the internal clock. Maybe more modes, scale and modes, but you do have a user scale. You can create your own scale. You can save a different scale with each project. So you can work just fine with it. It's not a big issue. Maybe ratcheting, it could do with, I felt it could do with more ratcheting options, more types. Very important, there is currently no transpose function. So if you have a pattern of CVs and you want to transpose it, now you have to do it manually, changing each note yourself. But again, I just saw it posted on the forum. Transpose has been implemented and is going to be present in the upcoming firmware, which is again on the WicotOS. Something that would be nice to have is the ability to maybe use one of these CV inputs with an external, for example, an external keyboard, and the CV output of that keyboard or the CV output of a random module that doesn't have a memory goes into this input, so you can record external melodies with the Eloquencer. So if you consider that things like LFO mode definitely going to be implemented, I mean, they have specific dedicated buttons here, so there is stuff coming here for sure. Transpose is coming in the next firmware, plus everything else that is already there. The amount of control, editing you have with the CV, gate length, probability, controlled chance sequencer. You can go totally wild, totally random. You can have more or less control over probability variation. So you can go from having plenty of very happy accidents, or, as I said, have much more control on a little bit of variation. And that was really fun to work with. As a pattern-based sequencer, yeah, I mean, it's great. I like the fact that you make songs out of parts, not just out of patterns, because this allows you to group patterns into parts, so you can arrange a song made of chunks of patterns in a more efficient way compared to only having patterns. And then you're able to change tones of patterns one at a time to make a song. It's nice to have parts. I like the way the Eloquencer does it. Fully featured, I mean, in terms of clock input, outputs, reset, receiving or sending a reset, and then having division and divider and multiplier of an external clock coming in, and finally, the SD card, which allows you to save all your hard work when you create patterns. It's great. And let's not forget, of course, about the CV inputs to send voltage from any other source for, again, one more layer of control, to modify plenty of things you can do with it. You can mute tracks, you can add fill per track, you can change CVs, you can change the probability thing. So yeah, I mean, that's great too. So what do I think of it, as a final score? Right, I didn't post a video yet about my review process and the final opinion. I am not going to give a score, a numeric value to the end of a review, because I do believe that a numeric based final score will be out of date a week later. For example, I could give this X out of 10, then 2 weeks from now or a week from now they release a new firmware with new features. then I would be really I'm supposed to go back and change that number. Or new modules come out, which maybe offer less, so this is even more valuable, and vice versa. So I don't think a numeric score is very useful at the end of a review within the Eurorack Modular Eurorack world, where we have new modules coming out every day, Instead, I preferred to have a full-length review showing you most of what this device can do, and I'll do the same for my next reviews and so on, so that if I show you enough during the review process, I'm hopeful that gives you enough information to form your own opinion and give it your own score if you want to. Overall, I think the Eloquencer is a great pattern-based sequencer, offering a very comprehensive set of useful features, with more features being added. It's currently well supported. There is going to be a second run, as they mentioned on their website and on Facebook and forums, released soon with the new firmware as well. So yeah, this definitely should be at the top of your list if you're looking into purchasing a sequencer. If you're not looking for a pattern-based sequencer, then of course go back maybe in the review, see how this works and see if it can work for you. If you're looking for a pattern-based sequencer, then so overall, I am all thumbs up for the Eloquencer. Great job, Winter Modular. You came up with an excellent device. Thank you for keep supporting it and adding features to it. And yes, if you were to get it, and if you were into pattern-based sequencers, I don't think you can go wrong with the Eloquencer. So I hope you enjoyed this review. Thank you for enduring this review, and please do comment below. Was this useful for you? Is it too long? Should be longer? Are areas that I should have covered more? Did you hate it? Maybe you just hated the sound of my voice. Who knows? If you liked this review, if you find it useful, please support me by sharing it and by liking it. And above all, please subscribe. Do it now before you forget. Share on social media. Thumbs up under the video. Please do comment. Let me know what you think of it. Let me know what you want to see next. I'm definitely going to cover other sequencers and any sort of module. I have plenty of modules to show you if you want them. So thank you again for watching it. Thank you again for subscribing to the channel if you are subscribing to the channel. If you're not, please come back and subscribe later, but do subscribe. And well, until next time, keep Euroracking and have fun. Bye.